Now, pressure is intensifying in Bangladesh for the interim government to end its state of emergency and release the country's top leaders. Let's take a look now at the two women whose rivalry has shaped recent Bangladeshi politics. Sheikh Hasina and Khaleda Zia have alternated as prime ministers since the 1990s in a bitter exchange of power. In 2006, riots erupted at the end of Zia's term ahead of general elections. In January 2007, widespread violence led to a state of emergency. Polls were cancelled and a military-backed government took over. In July, Hasina was arrested on corruption charges and misuse of power, and Zia was similarly jailed in September. Authorities have since detained more than 170 political figures in a drive to clean up the country. Then, last November, natural disaster stepped in and made the situation worse for Bangladesh. Cyclone Sidra devastated the southern coast, killing at least 3,500 people. More than 260,000 people were made homeless and are still struggling for basic supplies. Well, as Tony Bertley now reports, politics is the last thing on their minds.
This is the Jamaria Future Park in Dhaka, a multi-million-dollar shopping and office complex, which, when completed, will be the biggest of its kind in South Asia. In a country beset by natural and political disasters, it's one of the few outward signs of progress. For Bangladesh's turbulent political scene, however, it is still very much work in progress. The military-backed caretaker government took power more than a year ago with the intention to stay for just a few months.
The fact that this caretaker government is in place for a longer period itself is not the critical issue. I think the critical issue is that for this government too is to make that stable transition and fulfill the people's aspirations.
Now, long overdue elections are being planned for early next year, but a government initiative to start a dialogue with the political parties has already hit a snag. The leaders of the two main parties, the Awami League and the Bangladesh National Party, are both being detained on corruption charges, and their parties are refusing to enter into talks until they are released. The war on corruption, one of the deciding factors for the military taking control, is being won, it is claimed, but the fight is slowing down.
In Bangladesh, most probably we are talking about hundreds of thousands of corruption cases. But we are also quite sure that our aim should not be to go for each and every case, primarily to identify the major ones, punish them, create a deterrence so that in future or at this moment others do not indulge in the same sort of activities.
So far, 41 people, including former government ministers and leading public figures, have been convicted. More cases are being fought in the courts. The crackdown has been welcomed by nearly everyone, but not all. Kushi Kabir's sister, Sigma, is married to Nazm al-Huda, the former communications minister who has been jailed for 12 years, his wife for 3 for corruption and abetting.
I think that the cases they have brought up are very weak in their the way they have been, they have not done their homework properly. And because I've been to these courts where I know that military in civil uniform are sitting there intimidating the prosecution lawyers and including the judge.
Human rights organisations have criticised some of the army's measures, including allegations of torture, which are strongly denied. Bangladesh is facing what it considers more pressing problems with food and power shortages, climate change and natural disasters, which directly affect the people. Few seem to mind that Parliament hasn't sat since autumn 2006.
As of now, the elections are due to go ahead in January next year. The caretaker government believes the foundations for a better and less corrupt administration have now been laid, but there are still a number of obstacles to overcome before then, before Bangladesh can truly return to a democratic system. Tony Bertley, Al Jazeera, Dhaka.